Hello, my name's Tyrone Edwards. I'm a mix engineer from the UK, and today I'm going to be taking you for a mix that I did recently. A friend of mine named ReloadArtist, track named Ayahuasca, and I'm going to take you through what I did with the drums, bass, and other instruments. Not really going to be touching on vocals today because the song's not released, but as soon as it is released, then I'll tap into the vocals. Let's go. If we jump straight into the drums, what we will do is decipher what I did with the drums. I didn't do too much. To be fair, these drums are quite simple. The objective was just to be quite transient, quite punchy, and keep the rhythm going. So I'll show you a bit of the processing that I did. But to be fair, before I do that, I'll start with what I did on the mix bus, because this was an important thing. On the mix bus, I like to sculpt a little bit of sound before I've even got things going. I do it very lightly and then I bypass them. And then I kind of mix, and then I'll re-engage certain things to see whether they're enhancing the sound or making it worse. If it's making it worse, then obviously I can take it off or I can adapt things, change things. But there's certain tonal qualities that I like from the beginning. So one of the first things that I went into was the SSL transformer plugin. Just a little setting that's in there called extra glue. And if I play the drums without, let me get to a part of the drums, a section of the drums. I'll jump right to the end. So if I play this section of the drums here, this is the drums and the bass. So if I'll mute the bass for now. I've got two bass sections, but I'll mute the bass for now. And what we'll do, we'll focus on what this is doing first. Tiny little bit of sheen and grit. Then I'm going into a plugin called Kelvin. Now Kelvin is more tonal shaping, more saturation, and it's a preset that I use that's called Mix Expensive, but then I've tweaked it a little bit. But what it does for me, I feel it adds to the smiley face curve. Ever so slightly, adds to the smiley face curve, but in a saturating way more than an EQ way. So if I bypass it and then re-engage it, ever so slight, but it builds, especially with instrumentation, it kind of helps things bloom and fill out. And then I've got my Shadow Hills compressor. Not doing much on it. I mainly use this for the steel. Never use iron, never use nickel. I always use steel because I like what it does to the low end. And majority of the music that I mix, low end is important. So I like zoning into the low end and getting things to sound right. So like literally not even 1 dB of compression. I think at the loudest parts it will give me 1 dB of compression. Then I've got Black Box, which is just doing some harmonic stuff. Mainly, this is more apparent when there's vocals playing. I have Ozone, Clarity, which I'm literally just tightening things up again. When vocals are playing, this is more apparent. And then I've got a final EQ in mid-side mode, doing a few things, pushing up certain frequencies, pushing that forward in the mids, like 425 in the mids. Heavily pushing some 140. Now again, this EQ may not stay on. In this mix it did, but a lot of the time I will tweak with this EQ, start to try and get some separation, some mid-side happening, and then start mixing. If it sounds like it's too much, I can either dial things back, and if it sounds completely wrong, I'll completely bypass the plugin. Just like with anything else, I'll bypass them, and then I'll go from that point and figure it out from there. So to me, when I first started, this was sounding okay. So if I bring the bass in, or basses, there's a sub bass and then there's some upper harmonic bass stuff. And the music I'll bring in, I won't bring in the vocals, but if I bring those in and we're at the end of the song, one of the loudest parts of the song, overall, this doesn't sound bad to me. The only thing that I can hear is that there are a few things that are quite muddy. So then what I do is I'll go back, I'll mute things. So I'll mute all the music, I'll mute the bass and the sub bass, and I'll mute the upper harmonic stuff. And then I will I'll go down to a bus level. So on my drum bus, I've got another Shadow Hills compressor. Again, now I'm using the iron mode because I don't want so much low end harmonic characteristics. I want them in the low mids and above. So that's what I feel iron does. And I've got, again, like 1 dB of compression and on the VCA side. But on the Opto side, I think I may touch 0.5 dB here and there. I don't think I ever hit 1 dB. This just glues things together for me. Then I've got my black box again, doing something different. Now I'm trying to get a lift. Brings forward the transients and some of the brighter stuff. And then I've got a form of transient designer. It's called Spiff from Oak Sound. I think that's how you pronounce it, Oak Sound. This preset is actually for toms, but I use it. I got this trick from Jason Joshua, actually. I use it at like 2% and it just gives me a little bit more transients. So it'll excite my transients. So later on down the line, when I want to clip my transients, I can, and I'm not digging too much into the sound, but I have excessive transients to clip and then kind of get the tonal balance that I want. So if I play this in Delta mode, you'll hear all that it's pushing. Oh yeah, it's on 2% mix. So if I bring the mix all the way up, Delta mode, this is what it's doing. Accentuating the transients. Let me put that back on 2%. That's all it's doing. It's just pushing the transients out a little bit further. And this one knob here is just for a filter that happens. I've got this filter on the drums, the basses, and the instrument bus. But I'll dig into that a little bit later on. So yeah, that's where we're at. So we've gone from a little bit lifeless. The stereo image is nice of these drums. The balance that I found was nice, but I needed a little bit of excitement. So from there, what I then decided to do was, okay, I'm hearing something in there's 2 kick drums. There's a kick drum that is for all the sub stuff, and then there's a kick drum that is for the transient and harmonics. And in the kick drum that is for the sub stuff, I found that there was, when listening to it on its own, it sounded fine, but listening to it in context with the other kick and the bass, there was just a little bit of boxiness that I could hear in the sub kick that I didn't want. So if we isolate the sub kick, this is how it was sent to me. It's straight subs. I've saturated a little bit just to get a little bit of hair on it. And there's literally just a frequency. It's 600 hertz. I didn't like it. Just a bit boxy. A lot of people like 600. I like 600, but not in this mix. If I bring in the secondary kick, it's where all the transients are. I just wanted that to be brighter, be more attacky. So I added more saturation to it, added more top end to it, 8K, added a point at like 1.5K, scooped out some 300 hertz, did a small boost at 70 hertz just to get a bit of what I'd call like whack. Yeah, so I feel like my kick sits good there. This was a weird, just like, it wasn't a snare, but it was like an off hit. All I did with that was added some 220 hertz, added some 600 hertz, and that was it. And then I have a wrapper that I use because for some reason my Pro Q4 doesn't work in my Pro Tools. I think I may have installed it wrong, but I'll sort that out at a later stage. And in the sides, I'm bringing up some 6K, well, 6.2K, which is this. Right at the edges. 8 dB of that. And then for a lot of the upper elements, like the percussive elements, I've done a similar thing. I really wanted them to sit in a space that was quite bright. So I've just boosted a lot of top end. And again, this one is dynamic. So I've got a dynamic boost, like an expansion happening at 10K. Yeah. If I bypass that, it becomes quite stagnant. There's no movement to it because the boost that I did, I only did one boost. I saturated, but I did one boost at 16K, almost 11 dB at 16K. And then I've got even more of a boost, which is more dynamic at 10K. It gives it back the rhythm and groove. And if I play that in context with the kick, there's my groove. That's my main groove. Everything else after this now is complementary to that groove. That's the core element of the drums right there. This section here, it only plays in certain places, so it will play here. It's a little drum fill. But I wanted that to kind of wrap around your head, so I've done a similar thing. I feel like I would have scooped some 350. I would have boosted in the sides some 100 hertz. I've taken out some in the mids around 130, and then I've done another expanding thing at the top end at like 9K. So if I bypass that and we just listen to that little groove, if I take the EQ off the original, the SSL, it's quite lackluster. There's no energy to it. So I boost 12K, I cut 2K, I cut 270, I boost up 200, saturate, and then go into my Pro Q4. And again, these are the important moves here. So if I bypass that, we'll get the overall tone. Bit more brighter, a bit more transient. And then if I bring in this Pro Q4, it has a life now. I like that. So after that, there's a few little things that happen in places. Like this hit here. This is just like a time stretched snare hit. I didn't do anything to that. I did add an EQ because I thought potentially I would, but I didn't do anything to that. But the EQ is there just as this is my first insert and everything. The next hit is similar. It is, if I make it a little bit bigger for you to see, there's a few different types of hits on this track. So you've got like a riser, same thing but quieter, and then you've got this at the end. This is like the second half of that riser, but quite loud. So it pushes forward. And all I wanted to do with that was, I didn't do anything. I thought I'd saturated it, so I didn't do anything with that. That's another case where the EQ was there just in case I wanted to do something, but I didn't need to. And we've got some additional hi-hats. These hi-hats were sent to me as ad prod. So these last 4 tracks were sent as additional production after my first mix that I'd sent over. So they were just, the producer found that he wanted to add a little bit extra. So that's what that was. Actually, there's 5 tracks because there's this quiet hi-hat track that was that happens in the intro of the song. In fact, let me jump back to that. So originally it sounded like this. It's a hi-hat. Again, I didn't do anything there on that EQ, it's just there. But I know that I did the Haas effect. So what I did here was I delayed, it would have been the left side by, how many samples is it? 16.9 milliseconds, just to get a wider sound. If I go through this with you now, you'll hear a shift happen. So right now they are stereo, so there is a bit of a spread, but I wanted more of a spread, and I didn't want to do it in a sense of like using like for example like a Waves S1 image. It wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. What I like about using Haas effect is I can get things outside of the speaker. If I get the milliseconds right, I can get it outside the speaker, and it just has a different effect. So here's the hi-hat, and then here's the Haas effect. Literally just pushes it all the way to the outside. It goes from like here to here. And if you listen to that in the context of the intro, just the drums, this is where they are. So we've got that groove happening. I feel like they overlap. I wanted this. I like that. So yeah, that was just a small thing that I did with that. Basically, I just used the Haas effect on that. Didn't need to do any EQ shaping or anything like that. And then we have a shaker. And on this shaker, we are doing something similar. No compression, but again, this big boost and the saturation and rolling out the low end. So if we listen to the shaker, again, quite dark. There we go. If we listen to it in context with the hi-hat, I like that. I like that a lot. Then the last thing, last but not least, we have a little finger snap, because there's a section in the song where he speaks on a quick transition of something. So yeah, we've got that, and it's pretty simple. Just a finger snap. And I don't think I did anything. No, I didn't. I didn't do anything at all. It was perfect as it was. So that is my drums. Now, down here I've got a whole routing system, and on my drum and bass bus, which at the moment you can't hear the bass, but on my drum and bass bus I have a clipper, and I'm doing quite a bit of clipping. It just helps me get a bit of loudness with my drums. If I play that in context with the bass has, in fact, I'll play the sub bass first. There is no, oh no, I do have my processing on, that's fine. So I can talk you through this as well. So, now this sub bass, if I bypass the drum, well, mute the drums, there's one main thing that's happening, and I'm just filtering out everything at the top, just so I've got just low end. All I wanted was just low end. There's not that much happening in the top end, but I just wanted to make sure I've just got low end, and then there's a little bit of compression, just to kind of give it a solid position. If I bypass it, it's not that big of a difference, but in the context of things, it just helps me gain back some headroom and put it into place properly. Then I've got this compressor. I'm not actually using it for compression. It's not doing any compression at all. As you can see, the discrete compressor is out and the optical compressor is out, but I am using the transformer colors, and I'm using iron on this one. Then I'm going into the R comp, getting about 5 dB of compression. Then I'm going into a saturator, black box, just getting some upper harmonics happening. And then I'm using Soothe, again, another Jason Joshua trick, where I have the low end of my bass sidechained to my kick. So it won't duck across the board, but it will duck in these specific frequencies. So if I play my kick, it's sent pre-fader, so that's why it's working without hearing the kick. But as you can see, it's not doing anything up here. I'm literally just sidechaining the low end. And if I put the kick in, just the low end of it, Now there's movement, there's a groove happening. If I bypass this plugin altogether, it doesn't sound as good. There's a bit of rubbing. Now that we have listened to the drums and the bass, we've spoken about the clipping that happens. We've spoken about the fact that I only get 1 dB on my mix bus. None of this processing actually on my mix bus changed in the end. I actually was quite happy with where it was, so I kept it throughout the whole song, even with the vocals included. If I bring in, that was a sub bass, so if I bring in all the other actual bass elements now, you'll hear what I was talking about. There's quite a few bits that go on, but they're quite important to the overall groove of the song as well. At the moment we have, this is the main bass. Let me move to here. That's like a sub bass, that just happens underneath. But accompanying that, we have these basses. So if we jump back, now again with this, I'm using R bass on the bus, and what I'm using R bass for is just upper harmonics. And then I'm going into my shadow hills. With this one, again, no compression at all, just using the transformer color, so I'm using steel on this one. Hitting the compressor again, about 6 dB. Harmonics, black box. What I'm actually doing inside of the bus with the actual basses, so this bass here, it's very mono, it's up the center. So firstly I've EQ'd it, I've added a whole load of top end, bit of compression, bit of saturation, just to bring it to attention. But then again, remember earlier I mentioned that Haas effect, I'm using that to push it to the sides, just to give it a different effect. Now where I was going with this was more of a wraparound type bass. So if we play without the Haas effect and we play the sub bass, actually no, the sub bass doesn't play here, but the drums do. Right at the middle, with that Haas effect, moves to the sides, moves out of the way, and then I'm just toning some stuff down. 200 hertz, scooped in the mids, gives it its own space and place. We've got a similar bass here. Well, it is the same sound. I think the producer just separated it onto a different track and did something slightly different with a filter. So I just followed suit. And we've just got this weird bass hit sound that continues through it. Didn't do anything there. I rolled out some top end. And then I'm guessing I just scooped out some low mids. Yep, some 200 hertz in the actual mids. And then this bass right at the end already has some stereo stuff going on. So I wanted to saturate it, add a bit of compression, just to make it a little bit gnarlier. And then I've done a similar thing, scoop the mids. Well, same thing, scoop the mids, just to get it out of the way. So with these basses across the board, there's no 200 hertz, too much 200 hertz in the way. If I play the basses together, they take on a different shape with that 200 hertz in. If I play that with the drums and the sub, I feel like there's just a bit too much push in there. Cool. That's the overall groove. That is the main groove of the song. The main driving force of this song is the drums, the really repetitive percussive drum pattern. Like I say, it's quite tribal. I think I mentioned that earlier. It's like it's got like a tribal feel to it. So that, and then the bass riding right underneath with these like upper harmonic bass frequency weird warbles and whatever else that are happening. Then we've got the actual music elements, which there's quite a bit. It's quite a bit. we have like a leading sample, which I am doing a little push at 250 hertz. I'm saturating, I'm taking out some 250 hertz. Then I've got, I know I'm going to be taking some stuff out of the mid channel. Yep, this is 200 hertz again. And then we have other elements that come through. So let's move to this second element. We have this. This is like a weird wrap around your head type situation. So what I did here, this is the original. It's very centralized. It's not actually wrap around your head. It has stereo information, but I don't feel like it moves enough. So I've EQ'd. Well, I have EQ'd, but ever so slightly. So I'm just taking out everything below 250 hertz. I'm pushing 1 dB at 250 hertz just to get that separation from everything else. Where remember, I've cut a lot of 250 hertz out of the bass. So now this frequency range, there's quite a bit of space there. I'm saturating here. I'm utilizing the Haas effect, probably at a different timing. So this one is 19.4 milliseconds on the right channel. Again, just pushing it outside the speakers a little bit. And then I know I'm doing another cut. Yep, cut 205 hertz. There's another sample here, which is like a vocal sample. The filter I didn't add. I'm just taking out everything below 250 hertz. Again, I'm using the Haas effect. This is at 18 milliseconds on the left channel. So if I bypass that, it's very centered. It does swing because there's some automation that the producer put in, but I just feel it didn't move enough. That works better for me. And then again, I'm cutting out some 215, 16-ish hertz, but in the mids, and then on the sides, I'm boosting around 3K. So what we'll do now is we'll jump into a few of the other elements. Like I say, this was a vocal thing. It was right at the middle. I didn't want it at the middle, so I gave it a bit of movement. That was pretty simple and straightforward. This song doesn't have like consistent melodic elements. That a lot of the melody is in the bass line. These are just like little things that are sprinkled through. So I'll just go through. We'll go through. So the next one, these are some random hits that happen. Quite buzzy. No EQ at all. But again, I know that I've taken out some of those mids and I've boosted up. So I've taken out some of the mids and then I've boosted some of the sides in the upper mids. What else have we got? We have something quite interesting is this. This came as ad prod. Literally came after the fact. So let's tap into this. We've got, it's like a bubble sound and I really liked it, but although I've got it quite in the mix, it added quite interesting texture. There's no EQ, no saturation, no filtering. All I've done is take out some of the mids. Again, I've rolled off a bit of the low end because there was some weird stuff happening down there that was kind of interfering with the bass. So that is right up to like 110, 115 hertz. But then I've rolled out some of the mids in the mids. And then again, I've boosted up some of the sides in the upper mids. Just to get some of the squeaks and crackles and that to stand out, but stand out in the sides rather than in the center. And we have, it happens a little bit later on. There's a nice chop in the middle because there's a break in the song that happens. Clean chop. Right back in. But then we have, again, that was ad prod. This was ad prod also, which is another synth sound that happens. This only happens once in the song and it happens during this break. haven't done anything to that. I've literally, the EQ is default, it loads as the first insert. But all I've done is pan it more to the left, because originally it was sent to me like this. Yeah, originally it was sent like this, and I just found it quite distracting. And it wasn't supposed to be distracting, it was supposed to be another addition to the rhythmic texture. But when I move it over here and I move it out of the way, it felt a bit better in context of things. So I was happy with that. Then we have, what else do we have? We have a Mad Synth. It's called a Mad Synth ARP. Producers and their names. Again, no EQ on that either. Nothing happening on that. I've just brought it down level wise. Here we are. Hold on. So this is the same as that Mad Synth, but this is filtered. It wasn't filtered by me, but it has a filter on it, and it's a growing filter. And that's why I didn't need to do anything. I think it happens again over here, but in a different way. And I've got this one at a higher volume, and I feel like, oh yeah, I haven't done anything here either. It's just, they're just at different volumes. See, this has got the filter more wide open. And in context, it's more of a feature. Then we have like a weird, it's called Suitcase 1. Let's have a listen to this. Hold on. Again, I've just moved it over to the right a bit. EQ'd out some of the mids. Pushed up some of the sides. And I'm guessing, yep, no EQ again. Oh no, there is EQ. So I've scooped out some 350 Hertz just to thin it out even more. I felt like it was meant to be a thin, delicate sound. We've got another Suitcase sound. No EQ on that at all. Mids and sides. Cool. Again, majority of the time when mid-side processing is used, it's predominantly used to kind of make a difference between the mid channels and the side channels. And what can happen with that is you get width. So because of where the vocals sit in this song, what I wanted was everything else to kind of wrap around them, so the vocals feel like they're in a very isolated floating space. And the only way I was able to achieve that in this song in particular was by carving more of the mid channel out than I typically would on an electronic mix. But it was fitting for this song just because of where things were supposed to be. I feel like in many of, you'll see anyway, many other mixes that I don't do as much mid-side processing. But in this song in particular, it was very important that I did the mid-side processing that I did to get the sound that I was chasing in my head. And then these last tracks that are in blue are literally just like effects, sound effects. So we've got like a white noise splash. I can't imagine I processed this. No processing. Then we have a breath sound. I may have taken it. No processing on that either. A lot of these sounds came to me from the producer, sounding pretty good. So already got some reverb on it, already got some stereo imaging on it. Then there's like a laser sound. I didn't do anything on that, I know I didn't, yeah. And then we have a jungle sound, important to the context of the song during this period. It's like ambient noise, no processing. And then there is like a shaker rise that I did process. So I'll show you originally what it was. It's already quite, even though it seems like a mono signal, it feels like it's already had some imaging processing to it. So I just pushed it that little bit further off. Did I EQ anything? No EQing at all. So my objective was solely just to push even further and push it out to the sides even more. So this is where it currently is. And this is where I have it. So in context, where it was, where I have it. Yeah, I find that was fitting. That's majority of the song, top to bottom. Yeah, we've got vocals, which I won't tap into just because I can't at the moment. But yeah, that's how this song came together. When it comes to the vocal aspect of this song, I will be doing another video on that, and I will be tapping into that more, and it will give more context and glue things together and make a lot more make sense when you can actually hear what the vocals are doing. But we're going to wait for that because we're going to wait for the song to be released, and we can move forward into that soon enough. But that's that for this one. Till next time, thank you very much.